What's up, guys? It's your boy Justin. Today we're reviewing DC Comics graphic novel, which is kind of ironic, and I'll tell you in a second. But yeah, this is Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, written by Steve Englehart, with art by Ross Andru and Tom Palmer, with covers by Jim Steranko, who was a famous artist from the comic book artist from the 70s, who went on to bigger and better things, but still hangs out in the comic book community to talk about Bill Finger, right? So yeah, this graphic novel was published in I think it was like 2010, but collects comics from from 1972, from 1973, which just comes with eight comic books, right? And I could be wrong, but I think these comics were originally published by Marvel, right? Because like look at these credits. You have Roy Thomas, Steve Englehart, right? Both guys worked at Marvel. Like both guys worked at Marvel, and so did so did like Jim Steranko, right? And this graphic novel goes for like $17.99. 21 Canadian. I paid, I paid $21 yeah, which is for 8 comics. This is pretty good. So yeah, for people who don't know what Doc Savage was, Doc Savage was one of the early pulp heroes. Like, he came out around the same time as The Shadow, right? And I think Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon might came out later, actually. And he's been referred to as the first superhero, and reading about him, there's a lot of references to, there's like a lot of stuff in here that's like, oh my god, like, did they steal this? Did they steal this from this guy? Because this guy even has his own Fortress of Solitude in like Antarctica or whatever. Which is like, oh my god, when did Superman come out again? Yeah, so yeah, this comic book, it's like 8 comics, but it's like each, like, every 2 issues is based off like a single book, right? So like for people who don't know who Doc Savage is, he's like a crime fighter, adventurer, right? Created by Lester Dent, and he's basically a guy, a rich guy, who was trained by his dad since very young to become basically the Superman, to be like pretty much peak human condition. And he's not only is he super strong, but he's super smart. And it's funny because he's like super strong, and how he became super strong is by working out 2 hours a day, guys. Like, I think your average bodybuilder works out at least like three hours a day. So it's like, this guy works out 2 hours a day, and he's like the strongest guy ever, right? Oh my god. And yeah, this guy's also lives in New York, right? And this guy, our guy here, Doc Savage, doesn't fight crime by himself and go on adventures by himself. He has 5 side characters that go along with him, right? You have Monk the chemist, right? And all these guys were in the army, right? You have Monk the chemist, who reminds me a lot of the Beast. You have Ham, who is a lawyer, who was a brigadier general in the war, right? And these two are best friends, but they constantly give each other crap. You have Long Tom, who is like an electrician, also in the war. You have Rennie, who is an engineer, but has massive hands, so he can punch through walls and stuff. And you have Jonny, who's like an archaeologist, right? So like the first story, right, is like you have this is based off I think is like the first book, the first Doc Savage book which was called Man of Bronze, which was about like this assassin tries to kill Doc Savage, right? And here you can see the other guys, right? And Doc Savage, you know, also shows up, tells them, hey guys, my dad is dead, and I found out like I inherited some land in like Hidalgo, which is supposed to be like in South America, right? So yeah, this Aztec guy tries to kill him, right? And his dad died of mysterious, like, you know, mysterious like circumstances. So he decides to go to Hidalgo to investigate. This guy, Doc Savage, also has a bunch of inventions. Like he has this, this plane slash helicopter that he created. Right? It's the thing where, like, he collects these guys who are like, you know, who are all like experts in specific fields, but he's also better than all of them. So our main character is kind of like a Gary Stu, right? He even has his own. He makes his own car, right? His own roadster, right? Yeah. So the first two issues is them trying to, you know, figure out like what happened to, like, you know, Doc Savage's dad. So they go to, you know, look at these beautiful covers though. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these were originally published by Marvel. Yeah, so they go to Hidalgo. There's a mysterious epidemic, right? And then the Doc Savage gets all the gold, right, which he'll use to help people, right? And he turns down the Aztec king's daughter, and she cries. Poor girl. So yeah, this is the second story, which starts in issue 3, which is called The Silver Death's Head, where Doc Savage and his men have to fight this criminal gang that's going around killing people, right? And here you find out that Doc Savage also invented like a handgun for like his henchmen his friends, his brothers to use. He calls them his brothers, right? And the guns are like non-lethal, even though they look like fucking Tech 9s or whatever. Oh my god, yeah. So also they introduce his cousin Pat Savage, which you later find out she's Canadian, right? She has her own beauty salon, right? So yeah, this is more of a murder. This second story was more of a murder mystery. Though there's some cool shit, like there's a cool like undersea battle, right? This is not a Jim Steranko cover. This is as the series goes on, they change up the artists, right, and it kind of gets worse. Even though this is a really cool cover, right? Yeah, cool stuff. Cool submarine battle, right? And the third story is Night of the Monsters, right? Where you have the a trapper, right? Gets. By the way, these books are all by Kenneth Robinson, right? And they were published by the Ferreira. But yeah, it's about this guy gets killed by a monster. His friend was nearby and tells his friend to go and hire Doc Savage to solve his mystery, right? And he goes to see Doc Savage, only to be gunned down in front of his door by the assassin. And here's a cool thing where it's like, you think he shoots at Doc Savage, and he's like, "You're wasting your time," and "You ain't human. I gotta get out here." And it turns out he has like a bulletproof glass window in front of the door. Yeah, so he takes up the case, right? And what was really cool about this story is that, oh my god, this was really cool, because it's like, oh yeah, the monsters are real, right? But so this is where the author, I guess, figured out, oh yeah, my main character is a bit too much of a badass, right? So I have to have like giant monsters for him to fight, which they explain how the giants are. It's by super science. They were created by super science, right? So the final story, right, is called The Brand of the Werewolf, where somebody kills his uncle who lives in Canada. And this story is like written by Gardner Fox and Tony Isabella, with art by Ross Andru and Frank Springer, right? I think both Gardner Fox worked on JSA comics from the 60s and 70s. So yeah, this story is like his uncle gets killed by this werewolf, right? And he goes to investigate. There's this thing where, like, you know, some Spanish people are there and they think they were told by, Doc Savage is there to kill him, right? And there's this thing where, like, the werewolf and this gang of people want this cube that has this werewolf brand, and that's what, like, you know, Doc Savage's uncle found, which is Pat Savage's, father. And, like, you know, you find out that, like, he had, like, Native American, like, you know, house servants in his, like, cabin in Canada, right? Yeah. So, yeah. So it turns out it wasn't a real werewolf. Sorry, guys. So yeah, I'm just gonna go into my likes and dislikes of the book. I really enjoyed this book. It's kind of like a mix of, like, Indiana Jones and, like, you know, like superhero books, right? Which is cool, because it's one of those things where it's like I was getting a lot of, like, it's like, if, like, this character obviously inspired, you know, Jonny Quest, and Jonny Quest went on to inspire Venture Bros, which was one of my favorite Adult Swim cartoons before it started to before the show started to suck after season 4. Yeah. And, like, yeah, this character obviously inspired, like, you ever seen, like flashbacks of, like, Dr. Venture and his Venture, like, Venture team? And it's obviously, these characters were the inspiration for those guys. So it's like, as a Venture Bros fan, I'm, like, loving this shit. So it's like, fuck, I wish I got into this shit sooner. Alright. Yeah, I like the action, I like the characters, even though, like, other than Doc Savage himself, the only other characters that get the most screen time is, like, Ham and Monk, and maybe Rennie, but, like, the other characters don't, like, Long Tom and the archaeologist guy, I forget his name, don't really get a lot of screen time at all. It's mostly, besides from Doc himself, it's mostly Monk and Ham, right? Who supposedly hate each other, but, like, are best of friends, right? There is some humor in the book. I like the action. Like I said, like, our character was kind of a Gary Stu at first, but then, like, as it goes on, it, like, you know, they show, you know, he's not like superhuman, you know what I mean? He has limits. You know, he's not bulletproof, right? Which there was a thing where, like, he had, like, the only time this guy, the closest he got to wearing a shirt was he buttoned up his vest, and it's only because his vest was bulletproof. So it's like, he has a bulletproof vest that he sometimes wears, sometimes not. Right, and I love how he went to Canada, right, when it's obviously, like, wintertime, and all he did was wear like a fur, like, you know, like a fur vest, man. So it's like, this guy refuses to wear a shirt, right? It's like, what the fuck? But yeah, some problems with the book, right? Is it's the thing where it's like the guy. There's a scene where he's like, you know, fighting on top of, like, let's see if I can find it. he's fighting on top of these like construction site, like on this unfinished building, and he jumps, he rides down with his bare hands this cable wire, and this shit, the steel wire, you would cut up your hands pretty pretty bad, right? But it's because like they say, oh, because of his training, he was able to ride down the rail without hurting his hands, right? So it's like, what the fuck? Oh my god! All the times he trained for 2 hours a day. He made his hands like impervious. I guess. And then there was this other thing where the bad guys in the monsters story needed a lion tamer that spoke spoke in African language, right? And okay, you find out why. Okay, you find out what they needed her for, but it's like, okay, why did they need a lion tamer who spoke African when the people that she was basically hired to, tricked into being hired into training the monsters, right? This is a cool picture. But like as far as we know, the monsters that they turned into giants were criminals, right? But they didn't look like they were from Africa. So why did they needed like a lion tamer who spoke African? Okay, that made no sense. Right? And they never like made sense of that shit. And like, yeah, and I didn't like that. Like, oh, this at first when they showed this monster, he's green, but like next time you see him, like they're all white, right? So yeah. Plus, it's like, oh, yeah, these monsters are bulletproof, but because they're wearing plate armor. But it's like, okay, there's part of a whole bunch of their body that's not covered in plate armor. And then there's also the fact that in the monsters story, it doesn't make sense that because when the guy found his buddy's body, he said it was all torn up by claw marks and stuff. The giants don't have claws, so they would have squeezed him to death. So that didn't make sense. But other than that, I enjoyed this book, and I want to read more Doc Savage, right? And there was a Doc Savage movie from the 70s, so I might watch that at some point. But yeah, like 7 out of 10. I definitely want to go read more Doc Savage. Hopefully, the stuff that Dynamite put out with Doc Savage is good. That's it for this video piece. And the other stuff I'm going to review. I want to review more Pulp Hero stuff. My next 2 reviews are going to be Marvel's The 12, where JMS writes a story with a bunch of old Golden Age Marvel superheroes like Black Widow and Dynamic Man, right? And then we're going to review Green Hornet Blood Ties.